Good morning. This is Jim O'Sullivan with SCORE, the organization that's your partner for life in starting a business, growing a business, and sustaining that business. Today, we're going to hear from Gary Dennis on how to improve your sales in business to business using social media. Before we get there, I wanted to say that we would like to have you put your questions on the question and answer tab at the bottom of the screen. If you raise your hand, I'm afraid we can't answer it. And also at the end of the seminar, we're going to have a poll. It's 2 questions, and we'd like you to answer those questions. With that, I will turn it over to Gary, and he can give you an introduction on himself and get into the slides.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm glad you all took time out of your Saturday to attend today's workshop. So today we're going to be talking about how to increase sales in a B2B environment. And for those of y'all that aren't familiar with B2B, it's business to business. Obviously, you can sell online to consumers or you can sell to businesses. But at the end of the day, it's still people, whether you're dealing with a business or a consumer, but it's just a little bit different. We're going to get into some of that here shortly. And the important thing is you want to do it without wasting time. And as sales professionals or business owners, I think all business owners are considered sales professionals. Time is our most valuable asset, right? So we could waste a lot of time and not get sales. So one of the most efficient ways to get sales is by using technology and, of course, selling digitally. And today's workshop is based on my book, B2B Digital Selling Secrets. It was an Amazon bestseller a couple months ago. And so that's what today's workshop is on. Obviously, we're not going to be able to cover everything because we only have an hour today, but we're going to hit on some very key points that will help you increase sales. And just a little bit of a welcome introduction, something to think about. If you failed at digital selling in the past, it's not your fault, okay? There's a lot of intricacies to digital selling that make things difficult in some cases. So we're going to hopefully help you get past those things in today's workshop. And, if you've been concerned in the past that you can't succeed with digital selling, put those fears to rest. The things we're covering today are very applicable and anybody can do them. Traditional sales trainers want you to think that only face-to-face meetings count, but it's just not true anymore. The game has changed. How you get customers has changed. If you've ever thought that some customers waste your time and your energy and want you to fail, you're probably right. Some customers do. Some customers guaranteed will waste your time, and some just don't want you to succeed, especially in a business-to-business environment. Some want your competition to succeed, and so they'll waste your time and ask for information and ask for pricing, and they're never actually going to use it. So I'm here to help you find your dream clients, to save time, and help you increase sales digitally during this webinar. So the goal for this web class, just to recap, I want to help the people who want to increase sales and people who want to find their dream clients and save time. This includes meeting their financial goals and not wasting time on the wrong clients. And the only way for you to significantly increase sales, and I capitalize significantly because there's other ways you can do things incrementally, but by using digital selling, you can completely change the game. At the click of a button, you can reach the exact client that you want to talk to. And you save a lot of time that way. And the only way to do that is by using technology. But you don't have to be a technology expert. I'm not, my team's not. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to keep it simple, but we're going to talk about some things that really do work. A little bit of background about this digital selling journey. I was finishing my MBA at University of Houston in 2017. And my team and I, we had this decision, we're going to create a sales app. And so we started doing market research and trying to figure out who wanted this type of app that we want to develop. And it was going to be an app that connected sales professionals to mentors or business owners to mentors. And as we started doing this market research, we noticed there was something much larger happening. The B2B, business to business sales process was going digital. And we've seen it on the consumer side, but on the business side, this was something new and it was growing fast. Every year it was increasing. Now, there was still a lot of people that weren't familiar with it, not like they are today with the COVID situation. Now it seems like everybody's transitioning to digital selling. But at that time, we were just on the spearhead of that particular change in the market. And it's something that would change sales forever. Whether you're a business owner or sales professional, it was going to change sales forever. And so sales professionals would have the ability to build relationships and close sales with thousands of clients at their fingertips. And that's literally how it works. And I'm going to get into some examples here shortly to explain exactly how. So what does this all mean to you? So it's going to help you qualify clients faster, find your dream clients faster, and save time so you can focus on other areas of your business and ultimately increase sales. Now, you've probably heard the phrase digital marketing, and there's something different between digital marketing and digital selling. In a B2B environment, the main reason for digital marketing is to get leads, to find people that could be customers, basically, or have the intent to buy. And it's typically one to many. So you kind of send out a broadcast either on social media or an email, and you try to reach a bunch of people, and that's marketing, right? It's one to many. Digital selling is more one-to-one. And in a B2B environment, if you've worked with other business, you know it's more of a personal interaction. It's not a broad brush. It's very specific, very tailored. And the game, the goal or the game, whatever you want to call it, it's moving clients through the sales process. And it could be different stages of the sales process. It could be the beginning stage, it could be the middle stage, or it could be closing the sale. And it includes digital marketing. Digital marketing is a component of it, but digital selling has to do with that entire sales process. So here are some of the examples we're going to talk about. So digital selling, this is something that I've done personally. With the digital selling conference, my team and I launched the first digital selling conference ever in the United States. We use digital selling to do that. Education clients, I've worked with superintendents of schools and other education clients using digital selling. Healthcare clients, sales leaders, facility managers. It really works in any industry. And so we're going to get into more details on those specific examples here shortly. And these are the highlights we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about how to develop a sales process using technology, how to build a podcast, and how to be everywhere digitally. And then I got some bonus content at the end, and I also have some bonus freebies at the end. So if you stick around to the end, you'll get information on how to access those. But at the end of the day, it's all about building relationships. So if you look at the top right-hand corner of the PowerPoint, building business relationships digitally, because that's what it's all about. In a business environment, relationships are so important. So first, let's get into how to develop a sales process using technology. So when you first see this, some business owners might think, I don't understand how digital selling will work for me. And so let me tell you a quick story. So I got involved with digital selling, first heard about it. So I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I was responsible for a very large territory. And I didn't know how I was going to reach all of the clients I needed to reach on the budget. So it was a large territory, but also a very small budget. So I started researching digital selling at the time, and it just intrigued me that there was the ability to reach so many people in such a short period of time. I knew it wasn't going to be easy at first, but the capability is there. The hard part is, the easy part's finding the clients you want to talk to. The hard part's knowing what to say, right? So there's some other elements of digital selling you have to learn, right? You have to learn how, what to say and what the messaging behind that is and how to find those right clients. But ultimately, the capability is there. And it all starts with the buyer's journey. So after, I was working for that Fortune 500 company, I decided to start my own business, and we were a digital selling team. We were a digital selling consulting firm. And what we were doing, we were helping international companies come to the US, and we're also helping local companies grow their business in the US as well. But it all starts with the buyer's journey. And if you're not familiar with the buyer's journey is that first initial connection to your business all the way till you receive a sale. So everybody's buyer's journey is different, right? Even if your business is in the same industry as other businesses, it's going to be a little bit different. But the way to get started is think about your buyer's journey. What are those touch points along the buyer's journey where your client interacts with you? And what parts of those can you make go digital? And that's really the best approach, is look at what's currently working. You don't want to take what's currently working and completely wipe it out. Think about how you're getting clients right now, and think about those steps that it takes to close a sale, and what parts of those steps can be changed. And we'll get into that a little bit shortly. I have one example that really works, that you can kind of change the game, especially in a B2B environment. But that's really how you should think about digital selling. And you may change one part and it work. And if it doesn't work, you go back to what you were doing before. And you can actually do it in parallel to what you're doing now just to test it. And then as you find something that works, then try something else and see if that works. But don't try to completely change how you're doing things currently. Just look at what's working currently and change a component of that. So here's a couple of examples that have been used in the past. So the Digital Selling Conference. So when we launched the conference, we started running Facebook ads, and we're like, hey, it's simple, right? Just put a Facebook ad out and we'll have thousands of people joining our conference, right? It's such a great conference. It's such a great topic, right? Everybody's going to join. And we started running Facebook ads and nothing was happening. Nobody had heard of us before. Nobody knew who we were. Nobody, we had no reputation because it was our first conference. And so we weren't getting anybody to register, right? So the conference was on a February and it was January. I think this was back in 2017, if I remember correctly. And nobody had signed up in January. And so we didn't know what we were going to do. We had invested in this large ballroom. It cost us like $15,000 for the ballroom. Plus we had to pay for food, and it was a nice resort. It was a nice conference. And we're thinking, why is nobody registering? We got the best venue out of any conference in the area. We have a very innovative topic that nobody really knows about. And we were probably a little bit too early, to be honest with you. But what we did was we really looked at who our target market was, right? Who do we really want to go to this conference? And that's where, in digital selling, that's the first part. You should always start with who is your ideal client. And a lot of times it's somebody like you. It's somebody that has the same fears as you, has the same wants as you, has the same interests as you. So always start there. Who is your ideal client? And I started thinking about, okay, who is like me? I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should reach out to Aggies, because if you find people like you have that connection. You get a more of a personal connection there, and you can build trust a lot faster. So I started attending Aggie networking events, right? So I started going to Aggie networking events, and I gave Aggies a special discount for being an Aggie. Where the conference was in Texas, and so at the end of the day, we just wanted people to attend, because we knew we had a ton of great speakers lined up. It was a great venue. We knew they were just going to love it. And each networking event I went to, there would be 6 or 7 people that joined, right? So I went to a few of these, and I started figuring out what the messaging was. Like, you change certain words, you change certain messaging, you give certain discounts, and you get more people that join, that want to attend. And so I was running out of time though, right? So I was doing this during my lunch break, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to be going to a lot of different networking events. So what I did was I took that same message and I went on LinkedIn, and I filtered on LinkedIn Aggies in sales or business owners in Houston, right? And LinkedIn gave me hundreds of people so immediately I could just click on the right person and send them that same message that I knew had been working, but I just didn't have enough time. So I sent that same message to hundreds of people, and the conference room just filled up. Within a month's time, it filled up. We didn't lose any money on it, thankfully. And we got to build a lot of really great relationships, because that's what it's all about. It's all about relationships. So that's one example. Educational clients. I had the opportunity at one point in my career to work with superintendents of schools. And I don't know if y'all have ever worked with superintendents of schools before, but they are difficult to get in touch with, right? They got everybody demanding their time. And why do they want to talk to me? They've never heard of me. They don't know who I am. So I start reaching out to these superintendents, and you could try cold calling. You'll probably get a receptionist and may or may not get a call back. You probably won't, because they get calls from a lot of people. And some people go to different meetings that they attend and try to brush elbows with them, build relationships. So what I did was I started a educational podcast where specifically tailored to superintendents of schools. And I had a list of people ready to attend on the podcast and have a conversation on the podcast, and I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to go to any meetings. I didn't have to spend a lot of time figuring out where they're at. I just had to create a podcast, and they attended, and we quickly have a conversation, get to know them. They get to share their story about their schools, and get a lot of visibility. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. No matter what you're selling, it's all about the client. It's all about what do they get out of it. Like the digital selling conference was obvious, right? They get educational information. And for the educational podcast, it gives their school visibility and gets other people to hear their story. And for me, it was an opportunity for me to efficiently build relationships with these particular decision makers. So you may be thinking, I don't know how to get started, right? I don't know how to start a podcast. I'm not very technical. So we're going to get into that, right? How to build a podcast, right? And right now it may sound scary. You may be thinking, I'm not a podcaster, or I'm not extroverted. And let me tell you a quick story about how we got started. So my podcast right now is Digital Selling Secrets Podcast. My co-host and I, this is our podcast. Every month we're posting different interviews we have with people, but it's specifically focused on digital selling, or sales, leadership, and digital transformation, right? But before that, we were called 24 Floors Up. And we came up with the name just on a whim, right? We're just like, what are we going to call this thing? And at the time, we had some shared workspace downtown Houston that was 24 floors up in a building. And we said, let's call it 24 Floors Up. And just like that, we didn't spend a lot of time trying to come up with the perfect name. We just, and we had no extra money available. This was when I launched my business after I left that Fortune 500 company. And I was trying to be conservative with my money. We didn't have a studio. A lot of people have ththese podcast studios. It's been thousands of dollars. We had no camera or technology experience. Well, my co-host had a little bit of, we didn't use his camera really for the podcast, but he knew a little bit about cameras, but not much. Jerry, if you're listening, Jerry knows a good amount about cameras, but we weren't necessarily using it for the podcast. Clients love to be interviewed, right? So that's one thing we learned. Even if you don't have a big fancy podcast, was clients love to be interviewed. And so this is how we did it, right? So just like you're on Zoom right now, you had a computer camera or phone camera or Zoom video and an Anchor podcast. So these three things, this is really all you need, right? So if you have a little, you can get these on Amazon, these little tripods to set up your phone. So they're like $10, right? So you could set it up on your phone, or you probably have a computer camera. You can use that. You go to Zoom Video, it's free. And you basically have your podcast. You invite somebody on just like we're on right now, and you interview them about a specific topic. Figure out exactly who you want to talk to, what their interests are, and talk about that. And after when you go on Zoom, you can click record, and you get a recording of the audio, you get a recording of the video, and then you can go to Anchor Podcast. If you Google Anchor Podcast, you can upload the audio file that you get from Zoom. And like I said, when you save it, it gives you the audio file. And then you just upload it to Anchor, and Anchor distributes it to every podcast platform there is, right? So it's going to get seen by or heard by thousands of people. And then you got the video as well. And we'll get into that here shortly. So it's that simple, those three things: camera, Zoom Video, and Anchor Podcast. And you may be thinking, I don't have time to run a podcast. I'm trying to run a business, right? I don't have time for this. And I would just say it will be the most efficient conversation with the client you have ever had, right? And so think about it. Jumping on Zoom is pretty simple, right? You just click a button. Normally, when you have a conversation with a client, you got to get all dressed up, and you have to go drive somewhere, put gas in your car, maybe stop somewhere for lunch along the way, or on the way back, or whatever. Wait in the lobby for the client. And then maybe they get delayed, so you got to wait longer. So it could take hours, right? With a podcast, you can have an efficient conversation within minutes, right? And you can make the podcast as long as short as you want. Our podcast is 20 minutes long, right? It's just a 20-minute conversation. And we have to think about, how can we add value to the client? the value our clients get is they get a lot of visibility, right? And even right off the bat, you can do things on social media to share information about your podcast and get a lot of visibility on your podcast. So it adds value to your client, but you get to build a relationship with that person. And it also positions you as the thought leader on that topic. So if you're trying to be seen as the expert on a particular topic or industry or market, now you're the one sharing all the content on that. So it also positions you as a thought leader. Next is how to be everywhere digitally, right? How to be everywhere digitally. So some business owners may say, I don't know how to create content for multiple platforms. Let me explain. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with that podcast, right? And let's take a step back a little bit. So we started out initially talking about the buyer's journey and that digital sales process. This can be that beginning stage or a stage in the middle, if you will. Maybe the beginning stage is identifying exactly who you want to talk to. And the podcast could be about building the relationship with that, right? Building a relationship with that client or business. We talked about launching the podcast, and then now we're talking about what you can do with all the things you can do with that podcast. And the reason why I'm sharing this is you can spend a lot of time writing blogs, creating posts, creating podcasts. Believe me, I've done it, and it will consume your time, and you won't have any time for your business at all. Hopefully that's not score. Can everybody hear me okay? I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay.
I can hear you, Gary.
Okay, good. I've done these before where halfway through you're talking to yourself because nobody can hear you. Okay, good. All right, so you start with your podcast and then you repurpose that content, right? What you do is you turn that content that you've created on your podcast into different ways to reach people, right? And if you go and you check out the Digital Selling Secrets podcast content, or you look at Gary Vee, he's a big digital marketer, Russell Brunson, digital marketing, digital selling. If you look at their content on their different platforms, then you'll see they use a lot of the same content. They're not creating new content. Some of it is new, but a lot of it's the same, right? It's the same on multiple platforms. And that's really the most efficient way to do things, is to repurpose that content. And you may be thinking, I don't have time or know how to repurpose the content. And here's how you do it. So there's different sites out there. So if you use a site like rev.com, you can take that audio file that you already created with your podcast that Zoom creates for you. Go to rev.com and you can upload that audio file, and they will transcribe it into a Word document for you. And then you could take that Word document and create a blog out of it, right? And you could post it on Medium, you could post it on LinkedIn, you could post it wherever. You can post it on your website. And now you have a blog that's written from your podcast. And you don't have to use the same title. You could change the headline, change the title, whatever, and make it tailored, because as you have conversations with people on your podcast, you probably have, if you really think about it, you probably have several different types of content within that conversation that you can use, right? Different topics. If you covered 3 different topics, now you got 3 different blog articles. And you can also work with Fiverr. Fiverr can take that video that you created and really make it a nice, very professional looking video, adding headlines, adding captions. And Fiverr is a network of freelance marketers and professionals that would take this content, and you could even get them to take your transcription from rev.com and find a blog writer on there, a professional blog writer, to go through and clean it up and make it sound like a real blog. And it's very cheap to do. Like rev.com, I think it's like 10 cents a minute to transcribe it, something like that. Fiverr, you could find people for $5 or $10 to do video editing. So you don't have to spend a lot of time learning how to do this, because believe me, I've tried and I'm still an amateur at it when it comes to video editing. There's a lot that goes to it. And there's people that that's all they do. And then that way you can focus on your core business of building relationships with the right people and let them focus on what they do all the time. So I want to talk a little bit about some bonus content. So those were the three major points I wanted to cover today. So we talked about the digital selling journey, and changing your sales process, taking what works and improving that, trying different things. At the end of the day, it's all about experimentation. It's all about trying things, because what works for your market may not work for someone else's market. And if you see somebody advertising, hey, this will work for everyone, guaranteed, be cautious, because there are a lot of people out there trying to take your money that aren't believe me, I've spent thousands of dollars on different courses that were worthless, right? So it's going to be different for you than anybody else. It's going to be different based on who you are, based on your business, based on your industry. But you have to be willing to try things. You have to be willing to experiment with things. So take that buyer's journey, try something a little bit different, right? Take some technology, take a social media platform, take a Zoom video, try a podcast, and try something, and then try to start a podcast. It's very simple to do. I explained earlier. You have a video, or you have a camera, you use Zoom and use Anchor, those three things, and you have a podcast. Very simple to do. And then repurpose that content. You can use that for blogs, you can use it for videos, you can use it for the podcast. And ultimately, you want to be everywhere, because that way, and this is something that's been proven, there's statistics out there to show this, in a B2B environment, people are going to be looking for you, right? If you leave somebody a voicemail or send them an email, they may look you up. And if they look you up, you want them to see you everywhere talking about that subject that your business is related to. Because when they search for you and they see all this content about whatever industry or business you're in, then they're going to see you as the expert versus someone else. And that's kind of what it ties to, and that ties into buyer psychology here. At the end of the day, you're just dealing with people, and people want to buy from those they know, they like, and they trust. And it really helps that trust factor when they see that you're an expert on that topic. And if they see a lot of your content, they get to know you. And not every client's going to like you, but you're going to find the dream clients, the ones that do want to work with you, the ones that's interested in your business, and ultimately the clients that you want to work with as well. And it's a great way to do that. It's a great way to have clients coming to you versus you going to them. But if you do go to them through platforms such as LinkedIn, where you can really filter those different titles and experiences, you can find the clients that you really want to work with as well. And you can call them up or send them a message on LinkedIn as well. And as far as analyzing the data, when you start posting content, look for what's getting the most engagement. And you're not going to know for sure until you put out that content. You're not going to know what people are really interested in until you put out that content. And I've been a victim of this. I still am, to a certain extent, of just reading and studying and reading and studying and not actually trying things. And that's one of the most important things. And so you look at the engagement, you look for spikes in the data, you look for declines in the data, and figure out what are people really interested in when it comes to your business. And understand the different social media platforms. So you can use the content you create, like from your podcast, on all of the social media platforms. And they're all pretty similar, right? They have a post feature where you can post things, right? You upload and post it. Now, some you can post longer videos or shorter videos, or longer forms of content versus shorter forms of content. But you can still take sections of your podcast you created and change the headlines or condense it, or take a section of it, or take a short video and make a teaser out of it, to drive people to the other areas of your content, right? So you can drive them to your podcast, or drive them to, maybe there's one social media platform that you use more than others, and so you send them to your Facebook page, or and funnel hacking. So this is a term that comes from Russell Brunson, who's somebody I follow closely. It has to do with understanding your market. So when you go to people's websites, you look at their colors, you look at what kind of words they're using, you're looking at the layout, or you may be going to their social media pages and doing the same thing. Because you're, at the end of the day, you're building a brand and you want the brand to be aligned with your industry. And so look at the web pages and the other forms of content within your industry. Just Google it and look at the top ones and see what other people in your industry are putting out and try to do something similar, right? So you want to stand out, but at the same time, there's some things you may want to be similar to, where you don't come across as I mean, where you're in a way, you're positioning yourself in a way that clients are used to, basically. So you don't want to change things too much to where clients aren't comfortable with your business. I mean, but at the same time, you can look at what's working and change things a little bit to really get people's attention. Think about what do they really care about. And just remember, the only impossible journey is the one you never begin, right? Um, so the most important thing is to try something. Just get started. Don't be don't let it be paralysis by analysis, right? So just get started. Start with something. Hopefully in today's presentation there was something that you picked up today that that you can use. And if you start one thing, and you will find as you start doing things, you're going to get more ideas for other things, and that's just the way it works. And I think from an innovation standpoint, the most important thing is get started, figure out what people are interested in, and continuously evolve, continuously get better. We're going to get into questions in just a second here, but I want to share something. So these are the bonuses for attending today's workshop. So I'm going to give you a free PDF of my Amazon bestseller, which will go into even more detail of what we talked about today. It's $12.97 on Amazon. Also, I have a cold call script guideline that I put together, $17 value. I still use it today just because I spend a lot of time analyzing cold calling, and nobody likes cold calling. If you do, it's surprising because most people don't like cold calling. But it's a guideline script of something to think about before you pick up the phone, and it's really helpful. I still use it myself. Also, I have a training on how to build a website in 10 minutes. I've built some really bad websites, and over the years, I've gotten better at it. I'm not a coding expert. So it took me, I had to learn the hard way, but I have a formula to create a website in 10 minutes. And it's a $37. This is what I'm selling it for, $37 value. The total value is $66.97. That's a very discounted amount. But what's the value if you just helped one more client? What it'd be worth? And all those things. This is free for you for attending the workshop today. So if you're interested in these freebies, they're really helpful. Just email Gary at b2bdigitalsellingsecrets.com with the subject line "score free bonuses," and I will send the bonuses your way. And like I said, the most important thing is to just start. So with that being said, let's open it up for questions. If there's any questions at this time, I know we got a little bit extra time now.
Gary, can you see the questions at the bottom of the screen in your Q&A button?
I cannot yet. Maybe I should stop screen sharing.
No, you can still have it. Let me see. I will read. There's 4 of them I see here.
Okay.
The first one was a confirmation of what you were doing. It was yes. And somebody else was confirming that, yes, they can hear you fine. So most of the I have here is really just, they were confirming that they could hear you loud and clear. No questions per se.
Okay.
So what I would hope is some folks would start adding some questions in here.
Yeah, we got a few minutes. Any question related to sales or digital selling, happy to spend some time here and answer those.
Wow, 5th question just came in. What website software do you use to build your website?
I use ClickFunnels just because I'm really focused on sales. Everybody's got their different philosophy for websites. Some want to make pretty websites. You know, I want, when I build a website, I want it for sales purposes. And ClickFunnels is a little bit more expensive than the month-to-month rate of some of the other software platforms out there. But the time you spend is so much less. So initially, when I started building websites, I picked a very cheap platform because I didn't want to spend any money. But then as I wanted to make revisions, because you're going to have to make revisions, you're going to find that one website with certain words or certain fonts or certain pictures or certain videos are going to perform better than others. And you're going to have to test that. And so when I was getting a really cheap monthly subscription, it wasn't very user friendly. So when I went to change things, it would change everything. I would move one thing around, it would change, move everything else around. And I was not a coder. I'm still not. I'm not somebody that can do coding on websites. That's a whole nother skill set. I wanted to focus on my skill set. So I started using ClickFunnels because it's a funnel, right? It's not a website where people come and they click around and leave. It's a funnel is like you showing up to a store and having a sales professional ask you, where do you want to go? And they take you through to where you want to go versus you just wandering around the store. And from a sales standpoint, that ultimately that's how we want to be as sales professionals, where we figure out what does the client want and we give them what they want. And ClickFunnels is a great way to do that, where you have if you think about a typical sales funnel, you have people that come in at the top. Not everyone's going to purchase at the end, but at least you're kind of guiding them that direction. So that software platform has been really helpful.
Okay, Gary, we have another question here about how do you overcome the fear of making a podcast or selling to others? What are your secrets? What are your suggestions?
It gets easier. It's like anything, right? Think about anything you're afraid of. Just doing it the first time is going to be tough. You're going to have to face your fear. You're just going to have to do it. And then every time you do it, you get a little bit better. I mean, if you look at some of our first podcast, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we got started, right? And we're on like our 50th episode or somewhere around there, right around 50 for Digital Selling Secrets. And I feel like we've gotten better, but at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. It's easy to get caught up in how it looks to other people. And the most important thing is that relationship you're building on the podcast. And another way to do it is find somebody to do it with you, right? So maybe there's somebody that has a personality that complements yours, and both of y'all could do the podcast together. And so it's not as intimidating. And so I have a co-host on the Digital Selling Secrets podcast, and Jerry, he's great because he's different than me, but we complement each other. And it actually makes the podcast more fun too, because you have a couple people there, and that way, if you're thinking about how to respond or what to say, you got your co-host there that's there to support you as well, and you support them also.
Okay, the next question was, which comes first? Do you want to do a podcast prior to actually launching a business in order to help establish presence?
Oh, good question. So it depends on what your goals are, right? So if you're in no rush to start a business right away, I mean, there's no issue. It would be great when you start a business to have a list of potential clients that you could work with, right? And that's a good thing about branding, is you can start developing those relationships, start developing that list before you launch your business. So that's one approach to doing it. I think that's a very good approach. But if you know that you have to start a business very soon, you could do it in parallel even. I mean, the podcast is just a conversation. So it's there. It sounds, I know at least to me, when I first started, having a podcast sounded so big, like all these things, all these moving parts, but it's really pretty simple. It's really just a couple clicks of a button and you'll have a podcast. And it doesn't have to be everywhere at first, right? Just to get started. And so, I mean, I guess, now that I think about it a little more, it's probably good to have a podcast either way, right? You could do it for branding purposes, or you could start it at the same time. Because for example, let's say you have your business, you just launched it, right? Let's say your business is, I don't know, let's say you're a roofing company, right? You're a roofing company, but you have no customers. But the person that would be buying roofing contracting services or materials, whatever your roofing business would be. And so you launch a roofing podcast, right? And you invite those clients on there and you'll have a conversation about, hey, how'd you get started in the construction business? And then you'll have that conversation. Then after the podcast is over, you can ask them, do you have any need for roofers, right? You've already had a long conversation, 20 minutes or whatever conversation about the business and about what they're good at. And now you have an opportunity to ask them, and maybe it's not them, maybe they know someone else. So it kind of works hand in hand, whether you're launching a business or just doing it for fun with hopes of having a business one day.
Okay, next question. Do you find one social media platform more helpful than the others?
I hate this answer, but I get it, but it's so true. It depends a little bit. So I hate getting that response, it depends, right? Because I get it a lot. But it really does depend. It depends on the type of business that you're in. So LinkedIn and Twitter are great for B2B. If it was strictly business to business, I would focus mainly on LinkedIn just because you can filter things so much. You can figure out exactly who you want to talk to. But at the same time, the other platforms is helpful as well. YouTube is great. I mean, if you have content you want to educate people on, but the cool thing is it's really easy to be on all the platforms. It's just having content to put on all of them. I mean, all of them at a click of a button, you can post content and you can send messages. But having that content is key, and you're already going to have the content if you have a podcast. But for B2B, I would focus on LinkedIn. If it was B2C, I think Facebook is a better fit for that. But at the same time, you could have a business page on Facebook as well. Of course, your content and your messaging would be a little bit different, because if you think about Facebook, it's more friends and family, and LinkedIn is more professionals that are there to talk about business. And they can work together a little bit too. Like LinkedIn gets a little bit overboard with people just posting quote ads about their business, right? And nobody likes seeing ads for the most part. Nobody likes people trying to sell to them in the old fashioned sense, but they do care about value. And so you can have a more business focused content on LinkedIn, but on Facebook, you may have to somehow connect it to that more personal level and bring them to your business. So, and of course the other platforms is good. I mean, Google's great as well, but of course it's not a social media platform. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Who do you host your website and podcast with that make you feel more secure?
Jerry Manicrote. If you go to the Digital Selling Secrets podcast, he's on all of them. He's a good friend of mine. He's in sales as well. He's in sales in the medical industry, and I've been more on like the air conditioning industry. So we have different perspectives, but they complement each other, and you kind of get to see some overlap there in the different industries, because at the end of the day, I love sales. Like that's my passion. When I get off the podcast here, I'm probably going to open up a sales and marketing book, and that's going to be part of my Saturday. It's just what I love to read about, love to study. Yeah, you got to check it out, and you'll get to know Jerry a little bit too. We also have a Facebook page you can look at, and we got the video version posted there, and we have some of the videos on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, a question for one of my colleagues. How has the pandemic affected the need for your services?
Even more so. So one thing I'm seeing is, it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting. A year ago or 2 years ago, when my team and I were talking about digital selling, a lot of people didn't want to talk to us. They were like, "Oh, we don't need to be online, right? We do everything." And some clients were rude about it, and just sometimes people are just rude in general. But it was, as sales professionals, we all have to deal with that. Whether business owner or sales professional, you got to deal with those types of situations. But now, I mean, if you're not going digital now in the situation, for one, it's a safety issue because you're putting yourself at risk. Two, it's just a necessity now. I mean, every business, every legitimate business right now is going digital, at least to a certain extent. So it's, on the one hand, the market's a little bit more saturated, so you have to be good at it. You have to practice and get better at it and be innovative in your approach. And the podcast is one way to do that. Like, the podcast is not obviously selling, like, hey, I'm trying to sell you something. And at the end of the day, the really good people that do it well are focused on the value to the client and not just trying to sell something. But it's been the environment we're in. It is, I mean, digital selling is perfect for the environment we're in. If you're running a business, it keeps people safe. It helps you reach a lot of people. All the value we talked about earlier, plus the fact that it keeps people safe, I think it makes it something really good to have right now.
Okay, well, here's the last question we have. Do you offer your services to busy small business owners, such as updating websites and digital selling?
Yes, a very, very few. My schedule is jam packed, but depending on the business, depending on the situation, this is how I like to give back to small businesses, is through these workshops, and through some of the content I create. It's free. Sometimes I'll jump on a call and just have a free call with a business just to give back. Occasionally, I've worked with businesses, and it just depends on what kind of projects they have going on. Usually I'll do it, the weekends or evenings, outside of work hours. I'll help a small business. That's usually how I do it.
Okay, well, you have several here questions that are really just thanking you for your time. And with that, I'm going to launch the poll. And I will appreciate it if the folks just fill out those 2 questions. Gary, I have a question. Do you service these clients possibly by creating a space for them on your own domain where they can come in and work with you so that you save their docs and you can work with them? Or is it just one-off type of engagements?
For me, the way I have a website, it's B2B, the number 2, B2B, digitalsellingsecrets.com. And that's a way for businesses to get access to my content, and also reach out to me. And then, of course, my email is right here. If anybody has any questions or wants to talk with me, I'm looking at doing a mastermind group here very soon and doing it that way. So I'm open. If there's, I really enjoy doing this. This is something I'm passionate about. So if there's somebody that wants to have a conversation about how I might be able to help their business, I'd love to talk with them. So.
Okay, very good. And we're up to 54% of the people responding. So let's see if we can get 100%. And speaking of getting the vote out, I just want to remind people, vote early and in this election. So I'd like to get that vote out there too.
Absolutely.
Okay, that spurred them along. We're up to 72% vote. Anyway, one of the questions there is if you need a mentor based on what you heard today. And we do have mentors that get into some areas of social media. So you go to the SCORE website and ask for one of our mentors. That was a paid political advertisement by SCORE. Okay, we're up to 72%. I'll leave it open a little bit longer. Does your business pick up, Gary, around the holiday period?
Yeah. I think, throughout the year, it's not really seasonal. So my from a sales standpoint, my business is mainly focused on sales and air conditioning systems. So that can be seasonal to a certain degree, depending on the clients and that sort of thing. From a sales training standpoint, what I do that I'm passionate about for fun, such as my book I put together and all that throughout the year. So for the past 3 years, it's been pretty busy. Either through SCORE workshops or conferences, There's definitely an interest throughout the year for sale. I mean, every business needs sales. You still there? And I guess that's one difference for me is like I still do sales. I mean, there's different trainers out there that talk about sales. You know, they did sales 20 years ago, but I really like to still be in the game, and helps me learn and help others learn as well.
Okay, I'm going to end it now, Gary. I've ended the poll. So again, thank you very much for everything you've done.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.